Hashtag the moonlight chronicles the evening air carried the scent of jasmine through the open windows of the cottage as Sarah Mitchell finished clearing the dinner dishes. Outside, the first stars were beginning to twinkle in the deepening sky, and she knew it was almost time for her favorite part of the day. Her husband Michael was already upstairs, his gentle voice drifting down the hallway as he helped their 6-year-old daughter Emma and 4-year-old son Oliver get into their pajamas. "Mama, is it story time yet?" Emma called from the top of the stairs, her voice bubbling with excitement. She appeared at the banister wearing her favorite purple pajamas decorated with silver moons and stars, her dark curls still damp from her bath. "Almost, sweetheart," Sarah replied, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. "Let me just finish here, and then we'll begin our special time together." The Mitchell family had developed a bedtime tradition unlike any other. It wasn't just about reading a book or singing a lullaby, though those elements were certainly part of it. Their tradition was something Sarah had created quite by accident one evening when the power had gone out during a thunderstorm 6 months earlier. That night, unable to turn on the usual night lights or read their regular bedtime stories, Sarah had gathered her children in the master bedroom and told them they were going to become explorers of the night sky. She had opened all the curtains, dimmed every light in the house, and created what she called the Moonlight Chronicles, an ongoing adventure story where Emma and Oliver were the brave heroes exploring magical nighttime worlds. What had started as a way to calm frightened children during a storm had evolved into something much more meaningful. Every night, the family would gather in the master bedroom, create a cozy fort with pillows and blankets, and continue their shared adventure under the soft glow of whatever moonlight filtered through the windows. Michael appeared in the kitchen doorway, Oliver perched on his shoulders like a giggling monkey. "The crew is ready for tonight's expedition, Captain Sarah," he announced with mock seriousness, giving his wife a playful salute. Sarah smiled, feeling the familiar warmth that always filled her chest when she saw her family like this. Michael's sandy brown hair was slightly mussed from Oliver's enthusiastic hugging, and his green eyes sparkled with the same anticipation she saw in their children's faces every night. "Excellent. First mate Michael," she replied, playing along with their established roles. "Have our brave explorers gathered their special supplies?" Emma bounded down the stairs, clutching a small canvas bag that contained what they called their adventure supplies: a magnifying glass, a small flashlight, a notebook for recording their discoveries, and a collection of smooth stones they had painted with glow-in-the-dark paint to represent different magical elements in their stories. The tradition had grown organically over the months. What began as simple storytelling had developed into an elaborate shared universe where Emma and Oliver were seasoned adventurers, their parents served as their wise guides, and every night brought a new chapter in their ongoing quest to protect the magical creatures that only came out under moonlight. Tonight felt special, though Sarah couldn't quite put her finger on why. Perhaps it was the way the moon hung particularly bright in the clear sky, or maybe it was the excited energy radiating from both children as they prepared for their nightly adventure. Tonight, Emma announced importantly as the family gathered in the hallway, "I think we're going to meet the moon rabbit that Oliver saw last week." As the moonlight settled around them like a soft blanket, Sarah began weaving the night's adventure with her characteristic gentle voice that seemed to make even the most fantastical elements feel absolutely real. "When we last left our brave explorers Emma and Oliver," she began, "they had just spotted a mysterious white rabbit disappearing behind the crystal waterfall in the Whispering Woods. Tonight, they decided to follow that rabbit and discover where it had gone." Emma shifted excitedly in her nest of pillows, her notebook and pencil ready to record their discoveries. Oliver snuggled closer to Michael, his small hand still clutching one of their painted adventure stones. Tonight he had chosen the silver one that represented courage and curiosity. The moon rabbit had left tiny silver paw prints in the soft earth. Michael continued, naturally picking up the story thread as the family had learned to do over the months. But these weren't ordinary paw prints. They sparkled like stardust and seemed to glow brighter as Emma and Oliver approached. "I think," Oliver said quietly, his 4-year-old imagination already spinning ahead, The paw prints are trying to tell us something. Maybe they're like a secret message. Sarah nodded approvingly. Oliver's contributions had become increasingly sophisticated as the months passed, and she loved how he naturally wove logical elements into their fantastical adventures. "That's exactly right, brave Oliver," she said. As you knelt down to examine the paw prints more closely, you noticed that they formed a pattern. "Can you tell us what pattern you discovered?" Emma leaned forward, studying the moonbeams on the floor as if they were the actual paw prints. "They make the shape of a flower," she announced after a moment of serious consideration. "A flower with 5 petals, and each paw print is one of the petals. And what does that tell us about where the moon rabbit went?" Michael asked, his voice carrying the tone of a wise mentor, encouraging his young students to think through the clues. "Flowers grow in gardens," Oliver said with sudden realization. "The moon rabbit has a secret garden." The family had developed this collaborative storytelling approach naturally, with each person contributing elements that build upon what others had shared. Sarah had noticed that this method not only kept both children engaged, but also helped them develop problem-solving skills and creative thinking abilities. Following the flower-shaped trail of paw prints, Sarah continued. Emma and Oliver walked deeper into the whispering woods than they had ever gone before. The trees here were ancient and tall, their branches creating a natural cathedral overhead where moonlight filtered through in silver columns. Emma began sketching in her notebook, drawing the scene as her mother described it. These drawings had become a cherished record of their adventures, and the children often looked through previous entries before beginning new stories. "The air smelled different here," Michael added, his voice dropping to a whisper that made even the adults feel they were actually creeping through an enchanted forest. "Sweeter like honeysuckle and night-blooming jasmine, with just a hint of something magical that you couldn't quite identify." Oliver's eyes were growing heavy, but his attention remained completely focused on the unfolding adventure. Sarah had learned to gauge the children's energy levels during their stories, knowing when to introduce calming elements that would help them transition towards sleep while maintaining their engagement with the narrative. "As you followed the trail," she continued, "you began to hear something new. Very faint at first, like the whisper of wind through leaves, but gradually growing clearer." "What was it?" Emma asked, though her voice had taken on the dreamy quality that indicated she was beginning to relax into the peaceful state that their bedtime tradition was designed to create. "It was singing," Oliver said suddenly, his intuition surprising everyone. The moon rabbit was singing a lullaby. Michael squeezed his son's hand gently, impressed by the boy's instinctive understanding of where their story needed to go. "That's exactly right, Oliver. The moon rabbit was singing the most beautiful lullaby any of you had ever heard." Sarah smiled, recognizing that Michael was beginning to weave in the elements that would help transition their children towards sleep. They had both become skilled at reading the subtle cues that indicated when their adventure should start moving toward a peaceful conclusion. Following the sound of the lullaby and the glowing paw prints, you pushed through a curtain of hanging willow branches and found yourselves in the most amazing secret garden you could ever imagine, Sarah said, her voice taking on a quality of wonder that never failed to captivate her children. "Tell us about the garden, Mama," Emma whispered, her pencil still moving across the page as she drew, though her movements were becoming slower and more relaxed. The moon rabbit's secret garden was circular, surrounded by silver moonflowers that opened only at night. In the center was a small pond that reflected the moon so perfectly it looked like the rabbit had captured a piece of the sky. Around the edges of the garden grew herbs that glowed softly in the darkness, lavender that sparkled purple, mint that shimmered green, and chamomile that glowed like tiny golden stars. Michael continued the description, his voice rhythmic and soothing. The moon rabbit sat beside the pond, his white fur silver in the moonlight, singing to the moonflowers to help them bloom more beautifully. When he saw Emma and Oliver, he didn't run away this time. Instead, he smiled and beckoned them to come closer. Emma's drawing showed a garden remarkably similar to what her parents were describing, though rendered in the charming, slightly abstract style of a 6-year-old artist. She had captured the circular shape, the central pond, and even attempted to show the glowing quality of the plants with small radiating lines around each flower. "What did the moon rabbit say to us?" Oliver asked, though his question came out slightly muffled as he turned his face into his father's shoulder. "He thanked you for being so patient and gentle," Sarah replied softly. He explained that his garden was a special place where he grew healing herbs for all the woodland creatures. During the day, he slept in a burrow beneath the largest moonflower, but at night, he tended his garden and sang lullabies to help the magical plants grow strong and healthy. The story was naturally evolving toward themes of care, patience, and the peaceful rhythms of night. Exactly the emotional atmosphere Sarah wanted to create as the children prepared for sleep. The moon rabbit asked if Emma and Oliver would like to help him tend the garden. Michael continued. He showed them how to water the plants with moonbeam-infused water from the pond, and how to sing gentle songs that encouraged the flowers to bloom more brightly. Emma's eyes were now more closed than open, but she continued to listen attentively, her notebook forgotten in her lap as she settled deeper in her nest of pillows. "And as you work together in the peaceful garden," Sarah whispered, "the moon rabbit shared with you the secret of his lullabies." He explained that the most powerful magic wasn't found in spells or potions, but in the love and care that families shared with each other, especially during the quiet moments at the end of each day. Oliver had now completely relaxed against his father, his breathing deep, and even though Sarah could tell he was still listening to the story. Emma's hand had found its way to her mother's, and she squeezed gently to show she was still present in their shared adventure. The moon rabbit invited you to visit his garden whenever you needed to remember that you were loved and safe, Michael concluded softly. He promised that any time you looked up at the moon before falling asleep, you would be able to hear the faint echo of his lullabies, reminding you of the magical garden and the peace you found there together. The room had grown very quiet, with only the soft sound of contented breathing and the gentle whisper of wind through the curtains. Sarah and Michael exchanged a look of deep satisfaction, knowing that once again their bedtime tradition had created exactly the atmosphere they hoped for, a sense of connection, wonder, and peaceful transition into sleep. "Tomorrow night," Emma murmured drowsily, "maybe the moon rabbit will show us how to make moon tea from his special herbs." "That sounds like a wonderful adventure to look forward to," Sarah whispered back, gently smoothing her daughter's curls away from her face. As the family settled into the comfortable silence that always followed their storytelling, Sarah reflected on how this tradition had become far more than just a way to help their children fall asleep peacefully. It had become a daily reminder of the magic that existed in ordinary family life, and a way to end each day with gratitude, imagination, and love. Oliver nodded enthusiastically, his blue eyes wide with wonder. Despite being only 4, he had become remarkably creative in contributing to their shared stories, often coming up with the most unexpected and delightful plot twists. "The moon rabbit was very shy," Oliver added thoughtfully. "Maybe tonight he'll trust us enough to show us his secret garden." Sarah and Michael exchanged a look over their children's heads. This was exactly why their bedtime tradition had become so precious to them. It wasn't just about getting the children to sleep peacefully, though that was certainly a welcome side effect. It was about creating a space where imagination flourished, where the family came together every single day to share in something creative and magical. As they made their way upstairs, Sarah reflected on how this tradition had strengthened their family bonds in ways she never could have anticipated. During their nightly adventures, Emma had learned to be more patient and inclusive with her younger brother, while Oliver had developed confidence in sharing his ideas and contributing to their collaborative storytelling. The master bedroom had been transformed for their nightly ritual. Heavy blankets hung from carefully placed hooks, creating a cozy, cave-like atmosphere. Soft pillows were arranged in a circle on the floor, and the room's blackout curtains had been replaced with sheer panels that allowed moonlight to filter through while maintaining privacy. "Remember," Michael said as they settled into their designated spots within the blanket fort, "we need to be very quiet tonight. The moon rabbit is easily startled, and if we're too loud, he might disappear back to his hidden realm. Emma nodded solemnly, already slipping into character as the eldest of the two young adventurers. She opened their adventure notebook to a fresh page, ready to record whatever discoveries they might make during tonight's expedition. Sarah dimmed the last lamp, leaving only the silver moonlight to illuminate their cozy space. In this soft, ethereal glow, the ordinary bedroom transformed into something magical, a launching pad for adventures that existed only in their shared imagination, but felt absolutely real to all four participants. "Close your eyes, brave explorers," Sarah whispered, her voice taking on the mystical tone she used to begin each night's adventure. "Feel the moonbeams calling to you. Can you sense the magic stirring in the night air?" Oliver reached for his father's hand, while Emma moved closer to her mother. This moment of quiet connection before the story began had become as important as the adventure itself. It was a time for the family to leave behind the concerns of the day and enter a world where anything was possible. "I can feel it, Mama," Emma whispered, her voice filled with wonder. "The magic is stronger tonight. I think something very special is going to happen." Sarah smiled in the moonlight, knowing that her daughter was absolutely right. Every night with her family was special, but she had learned to trust the children's instincts about when their adventures would be particularly memorable. "Then, let our journey begin," she said softly, and with those words, the Mitchell family stepped once again into their magical world of moonlight and wonder, ready to discover what new adventures awaited them in the gentle glow of the night sky. The tradition that had begun by accident had become the cornerstone of their family life, a reminder that the most precious moments often came not from elaborate plans or expensive entertainment, but from the simple act of coming together each day to share in something beautiful. And imagine if 3 weeks had passed since the Mitchell family's first visit to the Moon Rabbit's secret garden, and their nightly adventures had taken them to many wonderful places within that magical realm. Tonight, however, felt different from the moment Sarah began preparing their bedtime ritual. Emma had been unusually quiet during dinner, and Oliver had been clinging more closely to his parents than usual. Earlier that day, their beloved elderly neighbor, Mrs. Henderson, had been taken to the hospital after a fall in her garden. The children had grown very attached to the kind woman who often shared cookies and stories with them over the garden fence. As the family gathered in their blanket fort, Sarah could see the worry still lingering in both children's eyes. Michael caught her glance and nodded slightly, understanding that tonight's adventure needed to address their children's concerns in the gentle, indirect way that their storytelling tradition allowed. "Tonight, brave explorers," Sarah began softly. "Emma and Oliver received an urgent message from the Moon Rabbit. He needed their help with something very important." Emma perked up slightly, her natural curiosity overcoming her subdued mood. "What kind of help did he need, Mama?" The message came written on a leaf that appeared on your windowsill just as the sun was setting. Michael continued, settling Oliver more comfortably in his lap. "When you touched the leaf, words appeared in silver ink that only the two of you could read." Oliver straightened with interest. "What did the message say, Papa?" Sarah opened the adventure notebook to a fresh page, pretending to read from it. "Dear Emma and Oliver, one of my dearest friends in the forest has become ill and sad. I have the healing herbs needed to help her feel better, but I need brave and caring hearts to help me prepare the special moon tea that will restore her spirits. Please come to my garden tonight, if you can help me. Your friend, the Moon Rabbit." Emma's eyes widened with understanding and purpose. Even at 6 years old, she recognized that their imaginary friend needed them for something important, just as she wished she could do something important to help Mrs. Henderson feel better. "Of course we'll help him," Emma declared with determination. "What do we need to do?" The family had discovered that their storytelling tradition was particularly powerful when it allowed the children to work through real emotions and concerns in a safe, fantastical context. Tonight's adventure would let them explore feelings of helplessness and worry while empowering them to take meaningful action within their imaginary world. "When you arrived at the secret garden," Michael continued, You found the moon rabbit waiting beside his pond with several small bundles of dried herbs arranged on a smooth stone table. His usually bright eyes looked worried, and his ears drooped with concern. "Who was sick?" Oliver asked, his small voice reflecting genuine worry for the imaginary forest creatures that had become as real to him as his stuffed animals. The moon rabbit explained that his dear friend, an ancient owl named Sophia, had been feeling very sad and lonely, Sarah said gently. She lived in the tallest tree in the forest and spent her nights watching over all the other woodland creatures, making sure they were safe and happy. But lately she had been so focused on taking care of everyone else that she had forgotten how to take care of herself. Emma nodded thoughtfully. She was beginning to understand that sometimes grown-ups, like Mrs. Henderson, who spent so much time tending her beautiful garden and being kind to others, needed extra care and attention when they weren't feeling well. The moon rabbit had gathered all the right herbs for the healing tea, Michael continued, but he explained that the most important ingredient couldn't be grown in any garden. The tea needed to be prepared with love and caring thoughts from true friends. "That's something we can help with," Oliver said confidently, his earlier sadness transforming into determination to help their forest friend. Sarah smiled, watching her son's natural empathy emerge through the story. The moon rabbit showed you each of the herbs he had selected. There was silvery moonwort for peaceful sleep, golden heartsease for comfort, purple dreamflower for happy memories, and green friendship moss for feeling connected to those who care about you. Emma began drawing in her notebook, carefully sketching each herb as her mother described it. Her artistic representations had become more detailed over the months, and she took pride in creating accurate records of their adventures. "But before we could begin preparing the tea," Michael said, "the moon rabbit taught you the most important part of the ceremony." He explained that healing tea isn't just about the herbs. It's about the intentions and love that go into making it. "What kind of intentions?" Emma asked, looking up from her drawing. "First," Sarah explained, "you had to think of your happiest memories with Sophia the owl. The moon rabbit told you that she had been watching over your adventures in the forest from the very beginning, keeping you safe during your explorations and feeling proud of your bravery and kindness." Oliver's eyes grew wide. "She was watching over us the whole time, even when we couldn't see her." "That's right," Michael confirmed. "Sophia had been a guardian and friend even when you didn't know she was there. Just like there are people in your real life who care about you and watch over you in ways you might not always notice." This was exactly the kind of gentle lesson that made their bedtime tradition so valuable to Sarah. Without being heavy-handed or preachy, they could help their children recognize and appreciate the network of care that surrounded them in their daily lives. "The moon rabbit showed you how to prepare the healing tea," Sarah continued. "First, you warmed water from the moon pond in a special silver kettle that caught and held moonbeams. While the water heated, you and Oliver took turns crushing each herb gently between your fingers, thinking loving thoughts about Sophia with each one. Emma put down her pencil and mimed the careful crushing of herbs, her face serious with concentration. "I'm thinking about how Sophia must feel worried about all the other animals, just like how I worry about Mrs. Henderson." Sarah felt a warm glow in her chest, recognizing that Emma was making exactly the connection she had hoped for. "That's perfect, sweetheart. Those caring thoughts are exactly what makes the tea so powerful." As you prepared each herb, Michael continued, "the moon rabbit told you stories about Sophia's kindness. How she had once guided a lost fox cub back to its family. How she had warned the rabbits about a coming storm so they could prepare their burrows. And how she had taught young birds to sing lullabies to help their babies sleep peacefully." "She sounds wonderful," Oliver murmured, his imagination fully engaged with the story of the caring owl. "I hope our tea makes her feel better." When all the herbs were ready, Sarah said, her voice taking on the ceremonial tone that always made their adventures feel particularly magical. "You and Oliver placed them in the silver kettle with the moonbeam-warmed water. But the moon rabbit explained that the brewing process required something very special." "What did it require?" Emma asked, though she was already settling deeper into her pillows, the rhythm of the story beginning to work its calming magic. While the tea steeped, Michael explained softly, the three of you had to sit in a circle around the kettle and share your favorite memories of times when someone had taken care of you when you were sad or worried. The moon rabbit said that these memories would infuse the tea with the most powerful healing magic of all. Oliver snuggled closer to his father, his earlier anxiety now completely transformed into the peaceful engagement that their bedtime stories always created. What memories do we share, Papa? Emma shared the memory of the night when she had a bad dream, and how Mama and Papa came to comfort her and stayed until she felt safe again, Sarah said, gently stroking her daughter's hair. Oliver shared the memory of the day he fell and scraped his knee and how the whole family worked together to clean the hurt and make it feel better with gentle songs and extra hugs. And what did the moon rabbit share? Emma asked drowsily. The moon rabbit shared the memory of the very first night you visited his garden, Michael replied. He said that meeting two such brave and kind young explorers had reminded him that friendship and caring could bloom anywhere, even in the most unexpected places. As the story continued to unfold, with the three friends delivering the healing tea to Sophia and watching as her spirits lifted with each sip, Sarah noticed that both children were now completely relaxed. The worry that had shadowed their faces earlier in the evening had been replaced by the peaceful contentment that always followed their most meaningful adventures. Sophia, thank you for the healing tea, Sarah whispered. But she said the real medicine had been knowing that she had such caring friends who would take time to help her feel better. She promised to continue watching over the forest, but now she would also remember to let others take care of her sometimes too. Emma's eyes were now closed, but she smiled at the story's conclusion. Oliver had curled completely into his father's embrace, his breathing deep and even with approaching sleep. Tomorrow night, Michael said very softly, perhaps Sophia will invite you to visit her treehouse and show you the special place where she keeps all her happiest memories. As the family settled into the comfortable silence that always followed their adventures, Sarah reflected on how their simple bedtime tradition continued to provide exactly what their children needed when they needed it most. Tonight, they had processed worry and transformed it into purposeful caring, learned about the importance of community support, and ended their day with the reassurance that they were surrounded by love and protection. 6 months had passed since the Mitchell family began their nightly adventures in the Moon Rabbit's magical realm, and tonight marked a special milestone that none of them had anticipated when the tradition first began during that long-ago thunderstorm. Earlier in the week, Mrs. Henderson had returned home from the hospital, much improved and eager to resume her gardening. She had specifically asked to thank Emma and Oliver for the beautiful get-well cards they had made for her, decorated with drawings of magical gardens and healing herbs that bore a remarkable resemblance to the places they visited in their bedtime stories. Tonight felt different from the moment the family gathered in their blanket fort. There was a sense of completion in the air, as if their imaginary world was preparing to share something particularly meaningful with them. Tonight, brave explorers, Sarah began, her voice carrying a special warmth. Sophia the owl has invited you to visit her magnificent tree house for the first time. She has something very special she wants to share with you, and the moon rabbit, Emma, now almost 7 and even more articulate in her contributions to their stories, sat up with interest. I've been wondering about her tree house ever since we first met her. What does it look like? Sophia's tree house is built in the crown of the oldest oak tree in the Whispering Woods, Michael continued, settling Oliver comfortably between his parents. The tree is so tall that its highest branches actually touch the lowest clouds, and on clear nights like tonight, you can see the entire magical realm spread out below like a living map. Oliver, now 4.5, and increasingly creative in his story contributions, closed his eyes and tried to imagine the view from such a height. Can we see the moon rabbit's garden from up there? You can see everything from Sophia's tree house, Sarah confirmed. The secret garden looks like a silver circle surrounded by dark forest, and all the paths you've explored over these many months wind through the woods like ribbons made of moonlight. The family had noticed that their bedtime stories had begun to naturally create a sense of continuity and connection, with each adventure building upon previous ones to create a rich, detailed world that felt increasingly real to all of them. Tonight's story seemed poised to bring together many of the elements they had explored over the months. To reach Sophia's treehouse, Michael continued, you had to climb a spiral staircase that wrapped around the outside of the great oak. The stairs were made of polished wood that glowed softly with captured starlight, and flowering vines had grown along the handrails, filling the air with the sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine. Emma began sketching the spiral staircase in her notebook, which had grown quite thick with drawings from their many adventures. She had developed a distinctive artistic style for recording their experiences, using silver and gold-colored pencils to capture the magical quality of moonlight that featured in so many of their stories. As you climbed higher and higher, Sarah said, her voice taking on the wondering tone that always indicated they were approaching something particularly special. You could hear the soft sound of wind chimes dancing in the breeze, and the gentle murmur of Sophia's voice as she spoke with other creatures who had come to visit her. What other creatures were there? Oliver asked, his eyes bright with curiosity. When you reached the top of the staircase, Michael replied, you found that Sophia's treehouse was like a natural amphitheater carved into the living wood of the great oak. Fireflies provided gentle lighting, and comfortable nests were arranged in a circle around a central area where Sophia perched on a branch worn smooth by years of use. Sarah continued the description, painting a picture that was both fantastical and deeply comforting. Gathered around Sophia were many of the forest creatures you had helped during your adventures. The family of fox cubs you had once guided home, the songbirds whose lost melodies you had helped them rediscover, and even some new friends you hadn't met yet. Emma looked up from her drawing, understanding dawning in her expression. They're all there because we helped them, aren't they? That's exactly right, Sarah confirmed, feeling a surge of pride at her daughter's growing emotional intelligence. But Sophia explained that she hadn't invited everyone to gather just to thank you. She had something much more important to share. The story was building toward what Sarah sensed would be a meaningful culmination of their months of shared adventures. She could feel both children's complete attention, and even Michael was leaning forward slightly in anticipation of where the narrative would lead them. Sophia told you that during all the time she had been watching over the forest, she had been collecting something very precious in her tree house. Michael continued. She had been gathering memories, not just her own memories, but the happy memories that all the forest creatures had created while helping and caring for each other. Oliver's eyes widened with wonder. She was collecting happy memories? How do you collect memories? Sophia showed you a very special part of her tree house, Sarah explained, her voice soft with mystery. In the heart of the great oak, there was a hollow space lined with crystal that sparkled like captured starlight. Inside this crystal chamber, memories took the form of glowing orbs that floated gently in the air like soap bubbles made of light. Emma had stopped drawing, completely absorbed in visualizing this magical memory chamber. What did the memories look like? Each memory orb glowed with its own unique color, Michael said, his voice painting the scene with careful detail. Happy memories of friendship shone golden yellow. Memories of overcoming fear glowed bright silver. Memories of helping others sparkled with warm orange light. And memories of feeling safe and loved pulsed with gentle blue radiance. Sophia invited you to look into the crystal chamber, Sarah continued. And as you peered inside, you realized that many of the glowing orbs contained memories that you had helped create. There was the golden orb from the night you first met the shy moon rabbit, the silver orb from your brave exploration of the crystal waterfall, and the orange orb from the night you helped prepare healing tea. Oliver pressed closer to his father, his imagination fully engaged with the magical concept of memories taking physical form. Could we touch the memory orbs? Sophia explained that these memories belonged to everyone in the forest community. Michael replied gently. They weren't owned by any one creature, but shared by all who had participated in creating them. When anyone in the forest felt sad or lonely, they could visit the memory chamber and be reminded of all the love and kindness that surrounded them. Emma's expression had grown thoughtful, and Sarah could see that her daughter was making connections between their imaginary world and real life. It's like how thinking about happy times with family makes you feel better when you're worried about something. That's exactly right, sweetheart, Sarah confirmed, proud of Emma's insight. Sophia told you that the most magical thing about memories is that they grow stronger when they're shared with others, not weaker. As the story continued, with Sophia showing Emma and Oliver how new memory orbs were constantly being created through acts of kindness and connection, Sarah noticed that both children were settling into the peaceful, content state that marked the successful conclusion of their bedtime adventures. The Moon Rabbit told you something very important that night in Sophia's tree house, Michael said, his voice growing softer as he prepared to bring their adventure to a close. He explained that the magical realm you have been exploring all these months wasn't really a faraway place at all. What do you mean? Emma asked drowsily, though Sarah could tell she was beginning to understand. The Moon Rabbit said that the real magic happened every night when your family came together to share stories and adventures, Sarah explained gently. The love and imagination you shared with each other created its own kind of memory orbs, filling your real home with the same golden light that filled Sophia's crystal chamber. Oliver had grown very quiet and peaceful, his breathing deep and regular as he settled into sleep. But Emma was still listening intently, working through the deeper meaning of what her parents were sharing. So the magic is real, Emma murmured, but it's not really about rabbits and owls and magical gardens. It's about our family and how we love each other. Sarah felt tears prick her eyes at her daughter's beautiful understanding. The stories are imaginary, but the love and connection we share while telling them is absolutely real. And that love creates its own kind of magic that you can carry with you always, even when you're not in the moonlight for it with us. Every night, when you look up at the moon before falling asleep, Michael added very softly, you can remember that you are surrounded by love, that you are part of a family that will always care for you, and that tomorrow will bring new opportunities to create beautiful memories together. Emma smiled peacefully, finally, allowing her eyes to close completely. Tomorrow night, can we visit the memory chamber again and see what new orbs we created today? We can visit anywhere our imagination wants to take us, Sarah whispered, because the real magic lives in our hearts and in our love for each other. As the family settled into the comfortable silence that always concluded their adventures, Sarah reflected on how their simple bedtime tradition had evolved into something far more meaningful than she ever could have anticipated. What began as a way to calm frightened children during a storm had become a daily practice of connection, imagination, and love that was strengthening their family bonds in immeasurable ways. The Moon Rabbit's magical realm would continue to provide the setting for countless future adventures, but now all four family members understood that the real magic they had discovered together was the power of shared love, creativity, and the commitment to ending each day with gratitude for the precious gift of family. In the soft moonlight filtering through their curtains, the Mitchell family had found their own version of Sophia's memory chamber, and it glowed with the golden light of a love that would last forever.